Hello, this is George.
And Bonnie.
I didn't know if I had to remind you.
You might have to, dear.
This is Adonai Sanctuary Truth Classroom. We're having some difficulty. We can't see half the time, but we're going to keep right on going. And hopefully it'll clear up in half hour or so.
Yeah, this is a good one.
We're going over Exodus, or Shemot, 13 tonight.
Yep.
Exodus 13 isn't a suggestion, it's a command to the Hebrews. Read 13:1, please.
Adonai said to Moses.
It doesn't say Adonai spoke to Moses. It says Adonai said to Moses, set aside for me all the firstborn. Now it's going to get kind of interesting.
Very interesting.
Read 13:2.
Set aside for me all the firstborn, whatever is first from the womb among the people of Israel, both of humans and animals, belongs to me.
Humans and animals, firstborn, belong to me.
That's really cool.
That's going right to the whole thing.
Right
there.
to the source, you bet.
Read 13:3, please.
Moses said to the people, remember this day on which you left Egypt, the abode of slavery, because Adonai, by the strength of his hand, has brought you out of this place. Do not eat hamez. I think I said that wrong.
Because Adonai brought you out of this place, do not eat hametz. Simple. Every preacher we have ever heard says don't eat bread with yeast. Right? Is that what you've always heard?
Yeah.
George, is that what you always heard? He shook his head yes.
He said it.
Almost every Bible says that yet something made me look it up more. Now, why would I do that? I don't know. We found that hametz means leavened dough. Either cooked or not. Then it states the term is also used loosely to refer to yeast or other leavening agents itself. Now that sounded really interesting.
I did. I like that cooked or uncooked though.
When we thought about that explanation, either cooked or uncooked, do you ever eat yeast, cooked or uncooked, raw yeast? That word hametz just might mean something so much more
I think so. Especially with Adam.
than what we have been told before. Moses reminded them when they left Egypt. Well, read 13:4, please.
You are leaving today in the month of Aviv. Yep, Tom said everything looks good.
Really? Well, it's jumping all over the place here.
And Yvonne says looks good.
You sure you guys can see?
You mean read 4 again now that I've read that?
Yeah, you're trying to make...
Yeah. You are leaving today in the month of Aviv.
You are leaving today. Now, have we heard that before?
Yeah, we have.
I bet my
were here last
sweetie's
week.
going to have to read 12:2.
You are to begin your calendar with this month. It will be the first month of the year for you.
Begin your calendar with this month, which is Aviv. on the modern day Jewish calendar, like we stated last week, it's not called Aviv, but the month of Nisan, Nisan. Now it's even the 7th month. On our calendar, it's it's March and part of April. Think about this. It went from Adonai saying 12, 1 and 2. At first, it's Aviv. To the name changed Nisan. And the 7th month of our calendar, which is March and beginning of April. But individuals see and say, so what? That was then. Okay, it was a command from Adonai, but we are going to follow what some man or men have changed it to. And we believe man more than God. Now, it's kind of interesting that on about a lot of things we've talked about, it seems they believe what man says more than what Adonai says. Now I wrote, sound familiar? Like what we talked about for 3 years. When a Catholic priest by the name of Jerome changed the name Yeshua, the Messiah, to Jesus some 391 years ago. And like we stated a number of times in those 3 years, that Catholic priests most likely would have had to have to do something to make such a dramatic change without the approval of a pope.
Didn't think so.
Well, of course he had to have the Pope's approval.
On his own.
And we believe the Pope must have put a stamp of approval for changing the Hebrew Messiah's name to fit a Catholic name for their Messiah. George and I have talked about this a number of times. The Pope in 1632, 391 years ago, it was Urban the Eighth. That's kind of interesting. We've talked about it so much, you'd think you people would be tired of hearing about it. But yeah. What's kind of strange is that you should be tired of hearing about it, but you still use Jesus. Now that's interesting. Very interesting. Would you read 13:4 again, please?
You are leaving today in the month of Aviv.
You are to leave in the month of Aviv. You are to call it Aviv. That's not a suggestion. Ladies and gentlemen, it came from Adonai. And when he speaks, I would think that we should look at it as a command.
You probably better listen. Yep.
If we don't listen, we can change the first month on the Jewish calendar or our calendar to January. Or March or April. Read 13:5, please.
When Adonai brings you out of the land of the Canaanites, Hittites, Amorites, Hivites, and Jebusites, which he swore to your ancestors to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, you are to observe this ceremony in this month.
Now that is very pointed, and George and I have talked about it on Wednesday. It gets to the point where it's very pointed, like 13:5 states, and here is what you are to do. Observe this ceremony in this month. What's interesting is when we talk about it, he doesn't say celebrate this ceremony in the month of March and April or in the month of Nisan, but it's supposed to be the month of Aviv.
Seems pretty clear.
When you enter the land, you must remember and obey this ceremony before Adonai. Now that's kind of interesting. You are to observe this ceremony before Adonai. Is that what you read?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Verse 6.
That's verse 6.
Yeah, you'll get there.
I didn't have you read that yet. Oh, it's not down here.
Yeah,
Anyway,
you'll get it.
I jumped ahead a little.
That's okay.
Don't forget what Adonai has done for his people Israel. Just like Adonai, Yeshua, and now go ahead and change the month's name. So what? It's not the real truth, but it's ours. Now read 13:6, please.
For 7 days you are to eat matzah, and the seventh day is to be a festival for Adonai.
The length, 7 days, and on the seventh day you are to celebrate with a festival for Adonai. Is that 4 or 2?
4.
For Adonai. This festival isn't for you.
That's right.
No, it's for Adonai. When you think about that statement, that's powerful. Not to be taken for granted. For Adonai's chosen people, the Hebrews, it's very, very important.
Yep.
To the non-Hebrew, it's an observation. But to the people of Israel, you might say it's their necessity. Like we stated before, has man decided to change this necessity to fit their own desire? Sure sounds like it. If you really want to put 2 and 2 together, that's what it sounds like, doesn't it?
It fits.
Nothing with leavening agents, or even to be seen anywhere. Now, I think the reason it stated that a number of times, and we brought it up, is because we kind of skim over that, being that we're true believers, you know. Everybody who calls themselves Christians or believers, it seems like people for centuries have just skimmed over that. Nothing with leavening agents are to even be seen anywhere. Wow. Read 13:7, please.
Matzah is to be eaten throughout the 7 days. Neither hametz nor leavening agents are to be seen with you throughout your territory. No
Eat
place.
matzah for all 7 days. We think verse 8 is, and we mean it, is so interesting. Read verse 8, please.
On that day, you are to tell your son, it is because of what Adonai did for me when I left Egypt.
Think about what that is really telling them. Think about it. It says, set your son down and explain to him why. Make it personal for him. When you tell your son, it is because of what Adonai did for me, it has nothing to do about me. It's about what and how Adonai blessed me and when I left Egypt. Remember that, son.
Ever heard that?
Remember that, son. It's about him, not me or you. That ceremony has nothing to do with the dad or the son, only about Adonai's ceremony to him. As we wrote that, it seems there are a lot of preachers, priests, and rabbi teachers who should be reminded about that statement. It's about him, not about you. Those first 8 verses in Shemot, or Exodus 13, seem to be talked about by many so-called preachers with very little acknowledgement of the obvious truth. In other words, they get individuals to see and believe their truth without the truth, without the real truth in the Word. They love to rewrite Scripture to fit them and their desires, not with the true words of Adonai. That's so obvious, yet so difficult to understand without a true study. Without a true study of only Adonai's words. Like us, and hopefully like you, people need to get through the brainwashing of your past that is the start of following Adonai, not man. That's a real hard statement. It's an easy statement to flow from the words, but it's so hard for, well, you might say, the common person, but really think about it, that statement. Like us and like you, people need to get through the brainwashing of your past that is the start of following Adonai, not your preacher. And actually, when a preacher reads it, he should be saying, not about my superiors. Not about my bosses, not about the Pope. You got to start thinking that that celebration goes for Adonai, no one else. Anybody ever said that to you before? No. George, anybody ever said that to you before?
No, sir.
He shook his head no.
And said no.
You might have heard no, sir. She called me sir. He doesn't do that when we're by everybody. It will serve you. Well, my honey's going to read Shema 13:9, or I'm sorry, Exodus 13:9.
Moreover, it will serve you as a sign on your hand and as a reminder between your eyes, so that Adonai's Torah may be on your lips. Because with a strong hand, Adonai brought you out of Egypt.
Now, did you really catch what she read? She said, Adonai's Torah is on your lips. Now listen to what's been stated here. We realized a long time ago Adonai's Torah is not the law, as so many denominational philosophy and church doctrines point to. It's not the law at all. But Torah actually means Adonai's teachings. Whoa. That puts a different slant on it. Therefore, if your Bible or your preacher say something like the Lord's law or God's law, they are adding to or taking away from Adonai's words. Now, actually, if you really want to think about it, that's a scary, maybe one of the scariest thoughts a person can have about a person, there's somebody they're supposed to be watching and learning from. Scary, isn't it? Read 13:9 again, please.
Moreover, it will serve you as a sign on your hand and as a reminder between your eyes, so that Adonai's Torah may be on your lips. Because with a strong hand Adonai brought you out of Egypt.
Now, when she read that about a Torah on their lips, that's speaking words. That isn't a command to just sit there. When it says that it'll be a sign on your lips, it's a sign, a reminder that Adonai's Torah, his teachings, may be on your lips. Stop and think about what verse 9 says. What we're supposed to say. It's supposed to come out of our mouth. We're supposed to talk the truth. And actually, that's powerful. Then in 13:10, it points to the scariest part so far. Oh, how could I say that? Read 13:10, please.
Therefore, you are to observe this regulation at its proper time, year after year.
You are to observe this regulation at its proper time, year after year. In other words, don't change the time, because it says do it at the proper time, year after year. Another scary thought. Because really, if you stop and think about it, in this day and age, that doesn't line up. If they do it in the month, the 7th month, it's supposed to be done in the 1st month. Oh, wait a minute, that can't be. Remember, we just read that they've changed Aviv to Nisan, and that's the 7th month. So they would be celebrating in the 7th month and not do the regulated command that Adonai gave them to do it on the 1st month, year after year. That's why we wrote it doesn't line up. Read 12:2 again, please. I think you read that before, didn't you? 12:2.
You are to begin your calendar with this month. It will be the 1st month of the year for you.
The month of Aviv. That's the month of Aviv. Yet every calendar that has been changed by man, in the Jewish calendar, it's the 7th month, called Nisan. Or it's on the calendar of the English-speaking people, I guess you call it that, the what commonplace one now, it's the middle of March to the middle of April. Think about what man overshadowed Adonai's talk, command, and his regulation of the proper time, year after year. They nor us keep his regulation, do we? Because we never knew about what it really said. That's kind of interesting. That one sentence that one verse, 13:10, shows how little man has kept to the word of Adonai. Yet 10 states observed at the proper time, year after year, this regulation. Isn't that what it said?
Mm-hmm. That's it.
Which, as far as I can tell, because of man, you might say, nobody does. Now, if there are Hebrews, Jews, or anybody who actually do keep this regulation in the month of Aviv, the first month of the Hebrew year, we apologize. Although we have never met one. My sweetie's now going to read in chapter 13, 11 through 16.
When Adonai brings you into the land of the Canaanites, in the land of Canaan, as he swore to you and your ancestors and gives to you, you are to set apart for Adonai everything that is first from the womb. Every firstborn male animal will belong to Adonai. Every firstborn from a donkey you are to redeem with a lamb. But if you choose not to redeem it, you must break its neck. But from people you are to redeem every firstborn son. When at a future time your son asks you, "What is this?" then say to him, "With a strong hand Adonai brought us out of Egypt, out of the abode of slavery. When Pharaoh was unwilling to let us go, Adonai killed all the firstborn male in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of humans and the firstborn of animals. This is why I sacrifice to Adonai any male that is first from the womb of an animal, and all the firstborn of my sons I redeem. This will serve as a sign on your hand and at the front of your headband around your forehead, that with a strong hand Adonai brought us out of Egypt."
Think about what she just read.
Wow, that's powerful.
It states Adonai, with a strong hand, brought us out of Egypt. And guess what we read in the previous verses? We are to have a celebration and keep that regularly to Adonai, for Adonai, because of what he did. It isn't a suggestion.
It didn't sound like it.
It sounds like a command.
Mm-hmm.
Yet, I have never heard of any preacher stress how big of a command it really was, or is. We're getting ready to quit. People, that writing states the what, why, and how Adonai kept his word. And why the Hebrews were also to keep theirs. And the final words were on the paper right here. Now that's so important. Mm-hmm. But how many preachers, priests, or rabbi teachers have ever really stressed that importance of what it states is what Adonai did and what we are to do for Adonai? And with our lack of real compassion for what Adonai does, it should be scary to us. But don't worry. I'm sure your preacher, priest, or rabbi, teacher have some explanation where they can explain all this away. It's just the Old Testament. Don't worry about it. It seems important when you really want to study the Word.
Mm-hmm.
So, we're done for tonight. And it's and when I went over it a number of times, it got more important the more I studied it. It got more in depth of what Adonai wants people to understand. Actually, the importance of it is astronomical.
Yeah, and just a small amount of verses.
Small amount of verses.
Covers a ton of stuff.
So, you guys have a good, happy Thanksgiving.
Yep.
And eat a whole bunch.
Gobble, 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 gobble.
Our turkey on the other side of the table. We're gonna put him in the oven on Thanksgiving. You guys, God bless.
Have an awesome week, guys.
Study the Word. Don't just believe what we say. And don't just believe what your preacher, priest, or rabbi teachers say. You need to study